"Francis," yelled my mom. "Don't have me come up there and bring you down myself. We were supposed to leave 15 minutes ago." I was zipping up my bag and couldn't help but get an eye roll in. My mom was always so fussy when she was traveling. It seemed like everyone was conspiring against her to make sure she was late. I was about to leave my room when I turned back and grabbed my Beats headphones off of my desk. I was not about to hear the nagging in the car ride to my friend's house. By the time I got downstairs, I saw that my mom's arms were crossed and she had slightly an unimpressed look on her face, as if it was all of my fault. Partially it was because my bus was late to pick me up from school, and then I had to eat a quick snack before packing my bag. Yet, I think my mom should have put her business attitude to the side for once and just learn to be a mom. Someone who's caring, understanding, and loving. I was her only child, for crying out loud. Which honestly, most kids would love the idea of being spoiled, and that was pretty much a sweet deal. But I would change all of that for a sibling. It just got so lonely around here, especially now being in my first year of high school. All the scary things of growing up started to hit, and I had a lot of questions. But I couldn't even ask my mom about it, since she would just book me in with a therapist or hire someone. My stepdad was a bit more grounded, and at times would make every effort to take me out somewhere and spend time with me. I guess in a way I had everything, but also nothing that was important to me. "Francis, could you please get your shoes on? And Derek, go start the car. I just want a quick word with Francis." Derek nodded as if he was a genie and my mom's wish was his command. "Franny, darling, while your dad and I are away, are you sure you'd rather stay at a friend's house than here? I could call Cecilia to give you company." "I'm fine, Mom," I said. "I'd rather spend it at Nadine's. I don't have much in common with Cecilia anyway, who only comes over to clean our house and cook from time to time." "Okay," my mom said as she told me to go and wait in the car while she locked up and set the alarm. November's cold chill hit my face as I took the short walk from the house to the car. "All set?" said Derek. "Yep," I replied. My mom joined us in the car shortly after as she got her gloves on. "Come on, Derek, let's make a move." By the time we exited our street and went to the main road, there was congestion at the major intersection that we had to make a left turn on. "Looks like a car accident," said Derek. "Try a different route," my mom said. Derek checked for traffic behind us. There wasn't any, so he made a quick U-turn into another street, and we came out on the other side of the traffic jam. My mom looked at her watch. "Great. If we don't hit any more traffic, we'll just about make it in time. Had Frances stayed at home with Cecilia, as I suggested, we would have saved time dropping her off." I could see Derek put his hand on her lap to calm her down. I was pretty much annoyed with my mom's whining and said, "I don't know what your deal is, but you need to quit blaming people when things don't go your way. I'm not a kid anymore who needs a babysitter like Cecilia to make me food at a specific time or read me a book before bed." I think it infuriated my mom that I was talking back to her, that she continued to bash my manners. I paid no attention and put my headphones on to drown her out. I could see Derek looking back at me in the rearview mirror, giving me reassurance with his eyes that he agreed with me. When we finally arrived to Nadine's place, I didn't want to delay my mom any further and quickly got out of the car without saying goodbye. I walked to the front of the door that had already had its porch light on. The door opened a few seconds later, and I could hear the car backing up. When I looked, it was Nadine's dad. He told me hello and then looked over my shoulder to the street to wave goodbye to my parents, but the car was already too far for my mom to notice. "Ah, looks like they're in a bit of a hurry today," said Mr. Bailey. "Come on in. We're just about to have some Neapolitan ice cream for dessert, but if you're hungry, we can fix you a plate. We had some carbonara pasta and salad for dinner." I said I would pass on dinner, but ice cream sounded great. Mr. Bailey told me to go into the kitchen where Nadine and her mom were scooping the ice cream into bowls. He would drop off my suitcase in the guest room. I walked into the kitchen and Nadine looked up and saw me. "Oh, hey," she said. "Long time no see." "I just saw you at school today," I laughed. "I know," replied Nadine. "I was just joking around." "Hello, dear," said Mrs. Bailey. "Would you like some ice cream?" "Yes, please," I said. Mrs. Bailey handed me a bowl, and I sat at the kitchen table where Nadine pulled up a chair next to me. "So, what do you want to do tonight?" she said. I don't know," I said. "I'm feeling kind of tired." "Oh, come on," she whined. "It's Friday night. We could rent a movie." "Do movie rental stores still exist?" I asked. "No," she said. "I mean, we can rent one online." "Looks like you're really out of it," snickered Nadine. Maybe some rest would be a good idea. After we cleared the dessert off of our plates, I was tempted for seconds, but I didn't want more sugar because I knew it would keep me up at night. I followed Nadine and her mom to the guest room. The room had a very musky yet stuffy feeling. I guess Mrs. Bailey noticed too because she asked Nadine to open the window for a bit to air it out. I looked around the room. There was white linens and curtains. The floral wallpaper moved from corner to corner. There was a bed with a nightstand next to it, and directly across facing the bed was a framed black and white photo of a woman who was seated. Her long hair went past her legs, but it disappeared from her knees in the photo. It looked like she was smirking in a warm, inviting way. And the picture resembled kind of like back in the day where you would do family photos and call a photographer to your house to take them for you, and then you dressed in your most formal outfits while being told to pose in ways you wouldn't do on any normal day. "This was my grandma's room," said Nadine. "Oh, right," I said. "I remember Grandma Gina." "Yeah, about that. Unfortunately, she passed away in this room. She was suffering from an infection." Mrs. Bailey cut off Nadine. "We don't want to scare our guest." "What?" insisted Nadine. "It's not like it's haunted. Grandma was the sweetest. She's in heaven watching over us. I know it." Too late, I thought in my head. I was already freaking out. The innocent smiling photo that was nailed across facing the bed I would be sleeping in the next 2 days was beginning to creep me out. What about your room, Nadine? Would I be able to share?" "I wanted that too," she said, "but I only have a single. It wouldn't fit the both of us." I thought, how about your floor? I could spread a sponge if you have an extra one." "Nonsense," said Mrs. Bailey. "We want you to be comfortable, and you might wake up with a stiff neck or something sleeping on the floor." "Oh, okay," I said, still contemplating thoughts of how to not sleep alone. "How about you bunk with me in this room?" I asked Nadine. "It's big enough for the both of us." "Ugh," said Nadine, slapping her hand against her forehead. "I completely forgot. I actually toss and turn in my sleep. I might just knock you out by accident." Feeling defeated, I said, "No worries, I understand." "I have a TV in my room if you want to go watch a movie," said Nadine. "Sure," I said. "Let me just change into my PJs first." The Baileys took that as the cue to leave the room. I unzipped my suitcase and pulled out pink plaited PJs. I removed my clothes and set them in a neat pile next to the chair across from the bed, right by the picture frame. I tied my hair in a ponytail. I could hear the rain falling, so I went to look out the window, which was on the other side of the room. It was pretty bad outside. The tree branches in the distance were moving violently. I got a buzz on my phone and saw it was a text from my mom. They had made it on time for their flight, and she told me to take care. I rolled my eyes, as I knew they would make it on time. My mom was rather dramatic about everything. I didn't want to reply with a text, so I just sent a thumbs-up emoji. I closed the bedroom window, which Nadine had opened earlier to remove the stuffiness. The room was nice and aired out now. I looked up, and I don't know why I did this, but the gold frame with the picture caught my eye. What was strange about it was Nadine's grandma's eyes looked like they were looking in my direction, as if they had shifted. My heart kind of did a quick thump, like when you're a bit startled. And so I kept my eyes fixated on the picture as I made my way towards the other side of the room where the door was. The eyes seemed to follow me. I wanted to scream so bad, but I didn't want the Baileys to think I'm crazy or that their family member could be possessing that image. I didn't have proof. Besides, from all the horror movies I've watched, every time characters try to prove anything in the beginning, no one believes them. I kept fooling my mind into thinking it was just an optical illusion and that I was causing myself to be frightened because some old sickly lady died in the room. I turned the doorknob and quickly left the room. I walked to Nadine's room, who was already flipping through channels. "Hey," she said. I made some popcorn and brought up some sodas. "What did you want to watch?" "I don't know," I replied. "You pick." "Cool," she said. "Since it's raining outside, we can set the mood for a scary movie. How about The Exorcist? It's a classic." Damn it, I thought. I shouldn't have let her pick. Of course, she was going to go with a spooky movie. I was never as brave as she was when it came to the horror genre, but I didn't want to be the scaredy cat at school on Tuesday in case Nadine slipped up and told people about me being a big baby. Yeah, that's fine," I said. "Listen, I might not stick around too long because I'm feeling rather tired." We started the film, and I tried to remind myself it was just a movie with special effects, that everyone was acting. Now, I don't know when, but I ended up falling asleep pretty early in the movie. I was awoken by Nadine shaking my arm. "Hey," she said, "the movie is over. You fell asleep, and I didn't bother to wake you, but I'm going to get ready for bed now. Did you want to go back to your room?" In my head, I really didn't, but I rubbed my eyes while yawning and said, "Okay, but first I had to brush my teeth." I went back into the guest room and grabbed my toothbrush and mini toothpaste from my bag. I completely avoided eye contact with the picture. I went to the bathroom, which was across the hall from the room. While brushing, I couldn't help but think, maybe I should have listened to my mom and stayed at home with Cecilia. After rinsing my mouth, I went back into the room and left the door open. Then I got under the covers and put my head on the pillow. I kept my phone next to me. There was a bit of light coming through the hallway. The door started to slightly creak back and forth. The adrenaline rushed through my body. Then the door swung shut, and I let out a scream so loud it sounded like bloody murder. Someone was behind the door, and then I heard snickering. The lights came on shortly after. It was Nadine. Mrs. Bailey ran into the room in her robe with a concerned look on her face. I nearly had tears in my eyes. "Girls, what's going on here?" "Nothing. I was playing a trick on Francis." Mrs. Bailey noticed the horrified look on my face and scolded Nadine that it was not funny, as she thought something serious had happened. She asked Nadine to go back to her room, who listened to her mom's stern orders. Mrs. Bailey stayed back and said, "Francis, I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" "Yeah, other than my heart beating fast, I'll be fine." I knew she could tell I was holding back tears. "Nadine is wild sometimes," she said. "I'm sure you already know. But sometimes the girl takes it too far." "You got that right," I said, nodding. "Is there anything else you need?" Mrs. Bailey asked. "Nope. I'd like to get some rest now," I said, even though I knew in my head it would be a tough time to fall asleep. "Of course," she smiled. "I'll see you in the morning, and we've got lots to prepare for. It's Thanksgiving dinner, and I'll need your help. We invited a few of Nadine's cousins over as well." "Sounds good," I said, as I couldn't help but stare at the photo in front of me, which gave me a slight shiver. As it looked back, Mrs. Bailey turned off the light and left. I didn't make any more eye contact with the picture. It was strange and creepy. I recited some protection verses from the Bible, even though I didn't consider myself to be overtly religious. I finally closed my eyes and dozed off. That night I had a dream, a terrible one. I saw myself lying in bed, in the same room as Nadine's grandma, and I saw Nadine's grandma, Gina, get up and walk out of the picture frame. She sat in the chair directly below the frame and smiled at me. Not a warm smile, but a wicked one. She extended an arm out, which grew so long like the branches of a tree, and it pulled the covers off of me. Her long arm wrapped itself around my neck like a snake coiling around its prey, and then began to choke me. I jolted myself awake, breathing heavily while feeling my neck. I was fine. It seemed to be the morning, and I could see the sun through the curtains. I looked at the time on my phone. It was 8:06. I sat on the bed. I checked my text messages. There was one from my mom. She said her and Derek had arrived safely in Denver and she would see me in a few days. I guess I didn't want to seem rude for not responding to her first text from yesterday as she was boarding the flight, so I responded with, "Great. See you soon." I got a second text from Nadine who said to meet her downstairs for breakfast. It was sent 20 minutes earlier. I was surprised that she had so much energy even in the mornings, especially on a weekend. I would sleep in longer had I not had that nightmare. My eyes caught the picture with Grandma Gina. I stared at it for a long minute, hoping it would blink so that I would prove to myself that I'm not crazy. Nothing happened. My eyes moved away from the frame to the chair below it, where I had left my clothes from yesterday. But instead of the chair, it was on the floor. Odd. I had folded it nicely the night before. There was no way it could have tumbled over unless someone had pushed it off. The dream from last night flashed before me. In the dream, the grandma came out of the picture frame and sat on the same chair. The hairs on my neck began to raise. It had to be a coincidence. I had to convince myself to believe that because I had one more night to spend here. I brushed my teeth and walked into the kitchen. Mr. Bailey was just getting up from his meal and he greeted me. He told me he was going to hang some lights outside, as Christmas was also around the corner. He then left. Mrs. Bailey was cutting onions and wiping tears from her eyes. "Good morning, Francis," she smiled. "Grab a plate and help yourself to some eggs, bacon, and pancakes in the skillet. We have some orange and apple juice in the fridge." "Where's Nadine?" I asked. "Oh, she just finished eating breakfast. She probably went to the basement to grab the Thanksgiving decor." Sure enough, moments later, Nadine walked into the kitchen out of breath. "Whoa, that box seems to be getting heavier and heavier every year, Mom. Maybe you need to stop buying more decoration stuff." "The more festive, the merrier," grinned Mrs. Bailey. "Isn't that right, Francis?" "Definitely," I said. After eating breakfast, Nadine and I spent the morning setting the table up for the dinner. I couldn't help but wish my mom and I could do family things like this. I could tell Derek always wanted to get to know me better. He was trying more than my own mom. But somehow, she would always swoop him into business-related events or proposals. By the early afternoon, we were in the kitchen with Mrs. Bailey. We helped prepare the appetizers. There was all kinds of veggies, meat platters, and loads of snacks. Looked like enough food to last through an apocalypse. Okay, maybe not that much food, but enough leftovers for the week. Nadine told me they were Italians, and among pastas, the dinner would last over 3 to 4 hours. It would be continuous eating. For dessert, there was funfetti cake, brownies, cheesecake, fruit platters, and assorted cookies. "How many guests are we expecting, including us?" I asked. I don't know," said Mrs. Bailey. "I had confirmation for 5, but it could be more. So you see, I don't want to run out of food. We don't know what kind of appetites people will be bringing in," she laughed. "That's true," I laughed back. It was around 5:00 p.m. when we all took turns in the bathroom to freshen up and change into our fancy outfits. Then we waited in the living room for the guests to arrive. Mrs. Bailey told my mom about the party, and so my mom fussed until she made me pack a crushed velvet maroon mid-length dress. I wasn't much of a dress person. I would have rather worn leggings with a long sweater, but my mom had control of my life. Well, I'd like to think for now, because I knew at age 18, I would be moving out. I pulled up my stockings and then tied my hair in a high ponytail. I spread a bit of pigmented chapstick on my lips and sprayed a little bit of body mist. I then knocked on Nadine's door to see if she was ready. She popped out of her room in a red and black plaid dress that fastened at the front with buttons going all the way down. "You ready to hit the party?" she asked. "Okay," I said. Just then the doorbell rang, and I could hear a ton of voices exchanging greetings. Nadine and I went downstairs. There were about 8 people gathered in the living room. Mrs. Bailey was passing out cocktails. Nadine's cousin Anne walked up to us. She was wearing a green satin dress. Her hair was loosely curled with a bow. "Hi, I'm Anne," she said to me. "Hi, I'm Francis." We went to the table in the corner between the living room and kitchen. We picked up paper plates and started to load them up with food. Nadine asked her mom if it was okay to take the food and drinks up to her room. Mrs. Bailey was distracted with attending to the guests, so she waved her hand in a go motion and we went upstairs. We watched an old movie called A Cinderella Story that had Hilary Duff in it, a modern-day fairy tale that's a live-action version of a classic Disney cartoon. It was quite funny, too. After we had eaten, we took turns painting each other's nails and talking about which boys at school we had a crush on. Apparently, I was into the more nerdy types and Nadine was into the popular jocks, which was a good thing because our different tastes in guys would never come between our friendships. We heard Mrs. Bailey call us back down as the dinner was ready. There was beautiful burgundy conning-ware with gold berry design on vines around the plates. There were 12 chairs at the table. 4 were taken up by Mr. and Mrs. Bailey, Nadine, and I. The other 7 included Nadine's cousin Anne, her parents, her brother Danny and his wife Michelle, and our other brother Damien and girlfriend Margaret. Damien and Danny were twins. It was kind of nice that they didn't go for twin sisters, but coincidentally, their significant others both had names starting with M. There was one empty seat at the head of the table, perhaps empty for a reason, and one that I suspected. It was more of a tribute to Nadine's grandma, who would have lived to see 99 had she lived this year. She passed 3 years earlier. Mrs. Bailey thought that after saying grace to go around the table and tell each other what we were thankful for. Most people said to be alive and living in a safe place. Others were grateful for their families and their jobs. When it got to me, I was stumped since my mom was never really around and I didn't get to meet my real dad who left my mom when I was born for a much younger woman. That's the story my mom told me. Who really knows what the truth is? I ended up just saying thank you to the Baileys for including me in their festivities for this weekend and letting me spend a couple nights with them. It has been fun joining in traditions, and I hope to do it again. Then it was Mrs. Bailey's turn. She had a huge list of what she was thankful for, but of course got emotional pointing out if her mother were still alive, she would have not let anyone in the kitchen, that she would fuss to do everything herself. Mrs. Bailey said that she prayed, and if her mom was watching down on her, that she was proud of her. Especially, she followed all the family recipes to a T, and that she'll never ever forget her mom. Everyone raised their glasses of wine. I raised my glass of water, as did Nadine. After dinner, I was so full, I struggled to leave the table to go to the dessert table. I sat there for a bit, waiting for my food to digest. The men went outside to smoke some cigars. Anne's mom and Mrs. Bailey got a head start on cleaning up and putting the leftovers away. I saw Nadine and Anne grab some paper plates and go to the dessert table. The desserts looked so delicious that I didn't want to regret that I missed out. I took a couple pieces of assorted chocolates, a scoop of ice cream, and a Black Forest piece of cake that I think Anne's family brought with them. We sat down at the table again, talking about Christmas holidays and what we would like as gifts. Nadine said she wanted some makeup, as her mom said she was finally old enough to wear it. Anne said she wanted a TV for her room so she can watch what she wants and not fight her brothers for the remote all the time. I pretty much had everything I wanted, but I just said clothes since that felt like the safest answer. You could never have too much. It was almost 10 o'clock at night, and I excused myself to go brush and change into a pair of sweatpants and a baggy t-shirt. The stockings were beginning to make my legs itch. When I came back out of the washroom, I could see Anne and Nadine changing their clothes as well. I walked into Nadine's room. She said, "Anne and her family are staying over. It's completely unplanned. I guess the adults had a lot to drink, and I don't think it's safe to drive at night." Basically, all the adults would bunk downstairs in the living room. Anne would take Nadine's room. Mr. and Mrs. Bailey would get their room, and Nadine and I would sleep in the guest room. I was slightly relieved hearing that, because perhaps I wouldn't have another nightmare of Grandma Gina. "Be prepared to get karate chopped to the neck," giggled Nadine. "You've been warned that I toss and turn in my sleep." I laughed back, but on the inside, I wouldn't mind taking a couple jabs to the face if it meant I wouldn't be scared. Nadine and I said goodnight to Anne and retreated into the guest room. We tried to conversate before bed, but it wasn't long until we both fell asleep. In the middle of the night, I felt someone shaking me. My eyes opened. It was Nadine. She was upset with me. She asked me why I pushed her off the bed. She thought she was the only one that moved around a lot in her sleep. I told her it wasn't me. She thought I was getting back at her because of the prank she played yesterday when she jumped from behind the door. I reassured her it wasn't me. She could believe what she wanted. This was the first time in a long while I've seen a serious face on Nadine. She wasn't the bubbly usual self. She was grumpy. Who wouldn't be if they rolled off the bed on the ground? I suggested that maybe she was on the edge, and when she tossed herself in her sleep, she must have fallen. Nadine was denying that was a possibility. She said she felt hands on her. I didn't want to argue with her, so I said sorry and took the blame. We both went back to sleep. Not much time had passed when I felt the room get cold. We were under 2 blankets, but my face was freezing. I slowly opened my eyes, and in front of me, I saw a shadow with long hair. It looked like it was standing there, watching me. My eyes shot to the wall where the framed picture of Nadine's grandma Gina was. It was empty, as if it was pulled out. I squealed. Although Nadine tossed and turned in her sleep, she seemed like a light sleeper because she woke up to my squeal. "What's the matter?" she asked, still groggy from being awakened earlier. "There is someone here, like a shadow at the right side of my bed." Nadine sat up as if she had the most courage in the world, and then she screamed. It was so loud that it echoed in the room. Suddenly the shadow walked towards me, and a hand reached out. I closed my eyes trying to recite lines from the Bible, but I couldn't remember any verses. I felt my hair being pulled. I began screaming. Nadine was losing it with her high-pitched shrills. The door finally swung open, and Nadine's parents ran in. "Girls, what's going on in here?" said Mr. Bailey, awfully concerned. We could hear footsteps coming up the stairs as well. "Mom, we saw a shadow, and I saw Grandma missing from her picture on the wall." Whoa, 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 whoa. "Calm down," said Mr. Bailey. "You saw Grandma come out of the picture." "No," she said. "I didn't see her, but the shadow was at the edge of Francis's side of the bed, and it was yanking on her hair. When I looked at the wall, Grandma was missing from her photo." Nadine's parents stood there in disbelief. Mr. Bailey turned to the picture on the wall, and sure enough, Grandma was still inside the photo. "Are you sure you didn't have a bad dream?" asked Mrs. Bailey. "How could Francis and I both have a bad dream, and at the same time, and of the exact same thing, Mom?" yelled Nadine. "Whoa, what's all the ruckus in here?" said Anne's father. "We were all sleeping." "It's fine, Jerry. We'll take it from here," said Nadine's dad. "Look, girls, grab your pillows. Let's just get you a memory foam mattress and put you in Nadine's room. You can sleep on the floor, and it might not be as comfortable as a bed, but we don't want you two to stay up all night," said Mrs. Bailey. Half asleep and half awake, we took our things and transferred into Nadine's room. Anne was rubbing her eyes, asking if it was morning already, but we said no and that we would explain everything in the morning. Nadine and I couldn't fall asleep, so we quietly whispered to each other. We agreed that what we saw was not our imagination. I told her Friday night I had a similar dream, but this time I was wide awake. Nadine told me she's never went into her grandma's room, except, of course, passing by it. After tonight, she was convinced there was a dark entity in the room. It couldn't be her grandma. She was the sweetest. "Maybe," I said, "or what if it is, and she's still lingering around because of some unfinished business?" "I really don't know," shrugged Nadine. "I just hope whatever is in that room stays there and doesn't move through the house, or worse, follows me to my room." "Maybe you ought to call a priest and sort that thing out." "You watch a lot of horror movies," I teased. "I'm sure you'll figure it out." "You're right," said Nadine. "But I think if there's anything I learned from those movies, is to just move. Only then will it all be over." "Good luck talking to your mom into that," I said. "She loves this place." "Thanks. I'll bribe her with a slice of cheesecake," snarked Nadine. "It works every time." Hey, Scary Story fans. I hope you enjoyed these short, scary stories written and narrated by me. If you have a scary story that's fiction or non-fiction and would like it to be featured in my next video, send it to the email in the description below. In the meantime, sweet dreams and happy screaming.